Imagine that tomorrow humanity discovers a door to a gigantic library that we knew almost nothing about. Inside, millions of pages, books that exist nowhere else, forgotten religions, lost knowledge, letters from kings, maps of unknown lands, and texts that could change our understanding of history. But now comes the scariest part. What if most of these books had already been lost, burned, looted, destroyed by wars, or simply disappeared along with the civilizations that created them? Today, we are going on a journey through the greatest, most mysterious, and most powerful libraries in human history. From Alexandria and Babylon to the Vatican, Kiev, Baghdad, and ancient India. And some of these libraries still keep their secrets. Subscribe to the channel because today we are going to open books that survived for thousands of years and remember those that humanity lost forever. Let's begin with a place that looks nothing like the library we imagine. No shelves, no parchment, no paper books, but thousands of clay tablets. In the 7th century BC, the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal created a huge collection of texts in Nineveh, and he was an extraordinarily educated ruler for his time. Unlike many kings, he did not only order wars. He was interested in writing and collected texts. His scribes copied ancient works from different cities of Mesopotamia. Among the tablets were myths, prayers, spells, medical texts, dictionaries, astronomical records, and literary works, and it was here that one of the most famous texts of human civilization was preserved, the Epic of Gilgamesh. And now comes an incredible moment. Nineveh was destroyed around 612 BC. The city burned. But the fire that destroyed wooden structures literally baked the clay tablets in many cases. In other words, the catastrophe that destroyed the city helped preserve part of its library. More than 2,000 years later, archaeologists began finding these tablets. A major discovery took place in 1850 during the excavations of Nineveh. And today, these tablets are one of the most important sources of information about Mesopotamia. Think about it. The city died, but its library partly survived the death of the city because its books were made of clay. And now, the library almost everyone knows. Alexandria, Egypt, 3rd century BC. The Ptolemies wanted to turn Alexandria into the intellectual center of the ancient world, and they created a library that was meant to collect knowledge from the entire world known to them. It was associated with the Museion, a great scientific and cultural center. Scholars came there, philosophers, mathematicians, astronomers. There is a famous story that ships arriving in Alexandria could be required to hand over books for copying. The originals or copies would remain with the library. In this way, the collection could constantly grow. By various estimates, the library may have contained hundreds of thousands of scrolls, but here a huge mystery arises. Who destroyed it? Caesar? Christians? Arab conquerors? And this is where the popular story diverges from historical reality. Today, there is not enough evidence to say that the Library of Alexandria was destroyed by one grand fire on one specific day. Its history was probably much more tragic. The library gradually lost funding, political support, and importance. Alexandria experienced wars, riots, destruction, and natural disasters. Different parts of its library tradition may have disappeared at different times. So it is possible that the library did not burn down overnight. It died gradually, and perhaps that makes its story even sadder. But few people know that Alexandria had a serious rival, Pergamon. In Asia Minor, another great center of knowledge emerged. The rulers of Pergamon actively supported science and culture. The Library of Pergamon became one of the most important in the ancient world. And here a problem appeared. Pergamon competed with Alexandria for intellectual leadership. There is a famous tradition that because of a shortage of papyrus, Pergamon began actively using parchment, a material whose name is connected with the city itself. Was Pergamon actually its inventor? Not exactly, but the city played an important role in the development and spread of parchment. And this is one of the beautiful examples of how competition between libraries could influence even the technology used to preserve information. Now let's move to Kiev. The year is 1037. Kievan Rus is at its peak. Prince Yaroslav the Wise was known for his love of books and education. A chronicle mentions books placed by him in St. Sophia Cathedral. Thus began the tradition of speaking about the library of Yaroslav the Wise. And here begins one of the greatest book mysteries of Ukraine. Where is it now? We do not have a reliably established location where the entire library was kept. We do not know exactly how many books it contained. We cannot point to a modern room and say, this is where all of Yaroslav's books stood. Researchers assume that the collection could have been significant for its time. It may have contained religious texts, translations, historical works, and other writings. And then Kiev experienced centuries of wars, looting, and fires. In 1240, the city was captured by the Mongols. And this is where one of the most romantic legends was born. Supposedly, some of the books may have been hidden in underground rooms or secret places, and they are still somewhere beneath Kiev. But there is no evidence that such a secret underground vault of Yaroslav exists. And this is important. Perhaps the library is not underground. Perhaps its books were lost. Perhaps some ended up in other monastic libraries. Perhaps some manuscripts survived for centuries, but we simply do not know that they came from this particular collection. And it is precisely this uncertainty that makes the Library of Yaroslav one of the most fascinating book mysteries of Eastern Europe. Now, the Vatican. If the Library of Alexandria became a symbol of the loss of knowledge, then the Vatican Library became a symbol of its preservation. Its modern history begins in the 15th century. In 1475, Pope Sixtus IV officially organized the new Vatican Library, and already in its first years its collection grew rapidly. In 1475, there were about 2,500 manuscripts there, and by 1481, almost 3,500. Today, the library preserves an enormous number of manuscripts, early printed books, graphic works, and other materials, and here it is important to separate facts from legends. The Vatican Library is not simply a secret library that nobody has access to. Researchers can work with its collections according to established rules, but access to rare materials really does require special procedures, and this is exactly what gave rise to legends about forbidden books. But the most interesting thing is not that fantastic secrets might be lying there. The most interesting thing is how much real history has survived in these documents. And now, India, Nalanda. This was not simply a storage place for books. It was a huge educational center. Thousands of students studied there and scholars worked there. Numerous Buddhist and scientific texts were preserved there. And then came the 13th century. In the 1190s, the complex suffered destruction during military attacks. In popular accounts of Nalanda's history, it is often said that its library burned for many months. This image became legendary, but specific details about the duration of the fire cannot be presented as an unquestionably established fact. Nevertheless, the destruction of Nalanda became a symbol of the enormous loss of intellectual heritage. Imagine a university where knowledge had been accumulated for generations, and then a significant part of that world simply disappears. 9th century, Baghdad, the Abbasid Caliphate, and here emerges one of the most important intellectual centers of the medieval world, Beit al-Hikmah, or the House of Wisdom. Works were translated there from Greek, Persian, Syriac, and other languages. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy. Ancient knowledge passed from one civilization to another. And then, 1258, the Mongols capture Baghdad. The city experiences catastrophic destruction. Many books and manuscripts were lost. A later legend says that the Tigris turned black from ink and red from blood. It is a beautiful image, but it is better understood as a legend rather than an exact historical description. Yet the catastrophe itself was real. And together with the fall of Baghdad, the world lost an enormous number of texts. And now, the Byzantine Empire, Constantinople, a city that for centuries was a bridge between the ancient world and the Middle Ages. Greek texts, Christian manuscripts, philosophical works, and documents were preserved here. And it was largely thanks to Byzantium that part of the ancient heritage survived for centuries. But Constantinople was not invulnerable either. In 1204, the city was captured by participants in the Fourth Crusade. Some cultural treasures were looted or destroyed. And in 1453, Constantinople finally fell. Some manuscripts were lost, others ended up in private collections, and some were taken to Italy. And here something extremely important happened. The loss of one civilization sometimes becomes the beginning of a new intellectual movement in another. Greek scholars and manuscripts that reached the West became one of the factors that contributed to the revival of interest in the ancient heritage in Europe. Now think about one thing. Why would a ruler need a library? Not only for education. Knowledge is power. If you have maps, you know the world. If you have medical texts, you know how to heal. If you have military treatises, you know how to fight. If you have history, you know how rulers before you won and lost. And if you control access to this knowledge, then a library becomes more than a storage place. It becomes an instrument of power. That is why great rulers so often created great libraries. Now comes the most interesting part. We often say, the library was destroyed and the books disappeared. But think about what that actually means. Perhaps among those books were works that could have changed science. Perhaps unknown mathematical discoveries. Perhaps histories of vanished peoples. Perhaps descriptions of journeys. Perhaps texts of religions that nobody remembers today. Perhaps early versions of famous works. And the scariest part, we do not even know exactly what we lost. Because it is impossible to make a list of books that we do not know ever existed. This is called an unknown loss. Imagine all the libraries of history, Alexandria, Nineveh, Pergamon, Kiev, Baghdad, Constantinople, Nalanda, and hundreds of others. Every war could destroy books. Every fire could erase thousands of pages. Every abandoned monastery could lose manuscripts to moisture. But there is another reason. We simply stopped copying books. Sometimes a book disappears not because of a fire. People simply stop reading it. Stop copying it. The language becomes dead. The last copy deteriorates. And the text disappears without an explosion, without a fire, without a dramatic ending. Simply one day, no one can read it anymore. And this is what is truly frightening. We remember the Library of Alexandria precisely because it was lost. We remember the Library of Ashurbanipal because its clay tablets survived the destruction of Nineveh. We search for the Library of Yaroslav the Wise because we do not know where its story ended. We look at the Vatican because it preserves an enormous part of the documentary memory of the past. But how many libraries do we not even remember? How many books will no one ever read again? How many ideas disappeared along with civilizations? And most importantly, how much knowledge did humanity lose without even realizing that it had ever existed? Perhaps the greatest library in history has already disappeared. Perhaps it was in Alexandria, perhaps in Kiev, or perhaps it still exists. We just have not found it yet. Because a library is not simply a room filled with books. It is the memory of a civilization. And when a library burns, it is not only pages that burn. The voices of people whom we will never hear again burn with them. Stories that no one will ever tell again. Ideas that could have changed the future. That is why every ancient book that has reached us is a small miracle, and every lost book is a mystery that humanity will never be able to solve. And now write in the comments, which library would you most like to visit? Alexandria, the Vatican, the Library of Yaroslav the Wise, Nineveh, or the House of Wisdom in Baghdad? And if you enjoy the mysteries of history, lost civilizations, and knowledge that survived for thousands of years, subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes the most fascinating history of humanity is hidden not in palaces, but on the pages of a book. Sometimes, a book that no longer exists.